Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Proper Madness, formerly Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and I give a unique perspective on mental health by providing tools, guidance, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, as well as our past and present experiences, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I get to speak with a variety of individuals from around the world as they share their stories from their journey through their mental wellness so that it helps others stand strong and use their voice. Welcome back, everyone, to Proper Madness. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Jane. She's come onto my platform very randomly, and it was a really cool, happy accident. Not really. She's a very lovely friend of hers that referred her to come onto the show, and I think you will all really enjoy what she has to offer. So.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm very honored to be in this space. And yeah, just with the simple coincidence that got me here, I'm so grateful to you for just being so open to, another story, another perspective on your wonderfully supportive, beautiful show that you have here. I love the rebrand. Proper Madness is gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, congrats. I'm Jane Lyon, by the way, and I am I'm basically an energy coach. That's kind of the label that has really started to feel good to me. My background, though, is that I've practiced yoga my whole life. I started teaching about 5 years ago. Around that same time, I converted formally to Tibetan Buddhism, so I have a very strict Buddhist background training. And then I also am an energy worker. I read the Akashic records, and I'm really obsessed with energy work as a form of kind of transformation, helping us with our mental health, just self-development. I like to call it spiritual development, helping us really get to know ourselves a little bit better. And so I've got some programs on the chakras and a lot of virtual yoga classes and meditation classes. And so I'm like, okay, energy coach, that's what I do, because I work in so many realms, but it's all the energetic realm in the idea of healing, of being a more healed person, being a more true, authentic version of yourself. So that's what I'm here to do.
That is beautiful. I love that. How did you get into that? Were you into this your whole life, or is that something that's new?
Well, I was really lucky because I was a pretty spiritual kid, and my mom was definitely aware of it. So she put me in kids yoga classes when I was 8 years old. So awesome. I got that side of me kind of contained. I was a musician growing up and a songwriter. So I feel like that part of me was maybe not nourished, but taken care of. I got my yoga classes, I got to play my music and, be that spiritual kid in a very religious, unspiritual world that I was raised in. And as I got older, it was really during college actually that my mental health just declined. I know I'm not the only one with that story. And for me in that decline, it was this desperation for a spiritual teacher, for the truth. The religion I was raised in was not giving me anything, any hope, any inspiration, nothing. And I kind of was in it was I was in my deepest, darkest parts of my life, and also in this crisis of faith of there's got to be something more. I'm such a privileged person. I should not be suffering this much. This is not right. And it took me on this quest of I knew it was funny because I had yoga, but I was taught such a Western form of yoga that I don't really feel like I was taught how to use it to actually support yourself. And so I started to think, there's got to be something here in this meditation thing. And that was back in 2012, 2013, where there was nothing. There was nothing online. There was no apps. There was no YouTube channels with meditators. So I just became so desperate for a teacher. And just anything that said meditation, I was there. I was trying it out. I went to probably 30 places. I've seen all the traditions, and that ended me up at a Tibetan Buddhist temple in downtown in my hometown here in Salt Lake City, last place I ever thought I would find my teacher. But a Tibetan Buddhist master, this very old man, like I went into his temple and was just like, this is it. And that's kind of when my healing journey started. And from there, I started getting interested in Reiki and Ayurveda and understanding like my perspective on yoga shifted into something more traditional and Vedic. And my understanding of ritual became more clear and tradition and, all of this stuff that you kind of miss growing up.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, I was like, I got to start teaching this stuff. I got to start sharing this stuff. So I started giving Reiki and teaching meditation classes, and just, it really was like, I didn't see this coming. This was not my life's plan. It was like the plan took me. The plan found me and was like, this is what you will do.
Doesn't it always though? I mean, isn't it funny? Like, I don't know, just from a energetic spiritual standpoint, like anything that you think that you would want to, like, you have this idea in your head. I'm gonna do this, but then life and your experiences and sometimes maybe trauma take you down a completely different route. So I think it's beautiful that you're sharing what you've learned and some of your healing journey with everyone else. It's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, my mission of my business now that I never thought would be a full-time business at all is I just want to be the person that I needed when I was 19, and I was so desperate for just like one person to like help me in any way.
Yeah.
And so that's just who I try to be every day now.
That is wonderful. In regards to your healing process, what was that like for you? Was it what were you healing from, if you feel like talking about it, and how did that process go?
Yeah, so in college, in my second year, I just started spiraling. And through high school, I had some depression, some anxiety. Like, I definitely was aware that like I needed some help, and I started going to therapy. And then my second year in college, I just was not okay. Just not okay at all, but still managing to function. And my mom talked me into going into the health center because I was just very much like, it's funny looking back, I was very much like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not okay. And I go into the health center and I see a couple of psychologists, and by the end of it, they're like, so we're diagnosing you with not only like clinical depression and anxiety, but also severe anorexia. Like, we need to talk about getting you into serious treatment. I hadn't eaten in like months, and I just thought that was like that's how mentally unwell I was, that like I thought it was normal that I like couldn't manage to eat for that long, and like didn't see, I was so lost. I was in such a dark place. And so it was so scary to just like be kind of given these labels and being like, you're going to go into this treatment and like all of this stuff is going to start happening. And that was really, really scary for me. And it was kind of, I love talking about my healing journey because I went into treatment and they kept me alive, but they didn't help me realize why I should be alive. And I think that was the hardest part, is that it was like, I would go to the nurse practitioner every week. She'd ask me about my suicidal thoughts. She would give me medication. I would see the therapist. They would talk to me about my, if I'm taking care of myself, I would go to the nutritionist and she'd give me this terrifying list of foods that I needed to eat. And I would just be like, none of you are giving me any reason to keep going. You're just kind of scaring me. Like, you're stressing me out because you're making me face my deepest, darkest demons, but you're doing it in such a clinical, sterile way. And I was in treatment for a long time, and I relapsed twice. And during my second relapse, they were like, you got to take a break from school. Things are so bad. Like, my health was just completely falling apart. And it was actually when I took a break from school, I got a medical leave. I re-entered treatment, and it was all outpatient. And that was when I found this ad for the Buddhist temple, just like a beginner 8-week course to go check it out. And I was like, it was like I could breathe. It was like, that's what I need. Like, while I'm in treatment, while I'm in medical leave from school, I'm going to start going to a Buddhist temple. And the first day that I was there, I learned about self-compassion. I
Mm.
learned about how to meditate on like your own heart and like the love you have for others and yourself. And it's so funny because this is what I teach every day now, but in that moment it was radical. It was like,
Yeah.
what? And that night I didn't access anything in my heart. You know, they're like, look into your heart, open your heart, feel the love you have for yourself. And I was like, there's nothing here. And that's when I was hooked. I was
Mm.
like, we're on to something here. Like and I kept going back every single week. And it's been 7 years now. And now I'm a directing member of the Buddhist temple. And I'm a full-fledged senior Sangha member. And that place saved my life. That
Wow.
place. And so that's what I say in my healing journey. Like, treatment kept me alive. I'm never going to tell someone not to go into treatment if they think they need it. If you think you need medication, whatever you need, go the Western medicine route. But who's supporting you spiritually? Like, who's giving you
Yeah.
a reason for this life? Who's answering the existential questions that maybe sent you spiraling in the first place? Um, and then a big part of that journey that I have yet to mention is that I was closeted my whole life. I knew that I
Mm.
was gay, and I just hoped it would go away eventually. And getting to college, you know, and seeing everybody else be so free and not letting myself be so free really, whew, really put me in a bad place. And so, um, coming out was actually Buddhism helped me to come out, which was just layer after layer, right? That
Oh.
brings you to the person you see today as like we've stripped all the layers and now just like the raw, vulnerable version of myself, you know. My soul's essence as close to it as I could get. You know, I've spent the last almost 10 years now trying to get to this place. So, yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I got chills when you said that you saw everyone else around you be so free, but you couldn't be free yourself. That is,
Yeah.
I feel like any person that has experienced that feeling in one way or another can relate to that, because to feel trapped in your own soul and in your
Mm.
own self because you have all these layers that you haven't stripped down yet is so incredibly isolating,
Mm-hmm.
so lonely, so
Yeah.
lonely. Yeah. I loved what
Yeah.
you said about the why behind, like, yes, getting mental health help and assistance where you need to in the Western side as well. But there are, there is like this huge question that I think everyone who has anyone who has ever experienced suicidal thoughts, they always have this, like, and I know from my experience, I always had that question of why the hell am I even here? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's my
Yeah.
purpose? If you don't feed that purpose, then it's tough to like find the motivation and discipline to like go forward, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think that people who have had, you know, any type of suicidal ideation, they get that. Like they understand that deep pain of what's the point of all of this?
Mm.
And none of my doctors at treatment wanted to tell me. They didn't want to have any existential conversations with me. And so it's funny because about a year into practicing Buddhism, I still was going to the doctor all the time. They started cutting me back. They're like, you're looking really healthy. We don't need to see you so much. And about a year into it, they run like all my blood work, they do all of my testing. And literally, they're like, we're amazed at how quickly you've recovered.
Mm.
Like, we're amazed. Like, you're not, I got off all of the medication. I had chronic issues. Like, when you don't eat for that long, it screws up all of your. I had all these chronic illnesses that they were going to have to treat forever. Everything is like healed. And
Wow.
they're like amazed at how quickly I recovered. And they're like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, I started meditating and practicing like Buddhist spirituality. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not saying that this is here to heal everyone, but what I felt like I wanted the doctors to get was that like I found a spiritual meaning to life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what suddenly like just catapulted me into so much health.
No, I completely agree. I had the same sort of aha moment when I went to my center, same thing. It was like it just popped
Mm,
up through like a friend of a friend. And I was looking at going into inpatient, like 30 days, girl interrupted
mm.
scenario. And I went, I don't know. I've seen these movies. Sometimes you can't leave after 30 days. So
I feel
I was
you.
like, that's not it. I was like, I can't do that. It helped
Mm,
me. It helped me find that why, that deeper spiritual why, the greater purpose behind why we're all here and why individually, it you need something to rely on outside of yourself. I feel like
mm.
my grandmother always, she has this little book that she gave me when I was really young. It literally says let go and let God. And I went, Grandma, no, I can control everything in my life. And she goes, no, just everything you can take it. And so I did.
Oh.
And like whether or not people believe in God or the universe, any sort of spirituality, you need something.
Hmm.
You need that greater purpose. So
Yeah. I know that you don't have a lot of spiritual folks on your podcast, so I'm really grateful that I could bring
yeah.
in this story.
Well, I think it's just so useful because for me myself, like anytime I feel like I'm on the wrong path in my life, I'll see the synchronicities, I'll see the signs, I'll see
Mm-hmm.
the little moments of confirmation of you're doing the right thing, you're here for a reason. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but say you have a question in your brain and then the right song comes on and you're like, wait a second.
Yes. Yes, and it answers the question, and you're like, oh, I'm connected to whatever the hell it is that got us here. I'm connected to it. You feel
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
that's kind of, to me, like, I like to think of myself as like the most grounded spiritual energy healer you're ever going to meet. I like to think that my strict 10 years of Buddhist training have kept me very, very grounded. And when we can think of spirituality as a way of just like remembering that I'm from the earth, I'm from the
Mm,
stars. It's not that esoteric. It's just
yeah.
cool. Like we're
Yeah.
from here and we're connected, and we can pray and we can ask for things. Yesterday I asked. I'm actually going through like a really difficult breakup right now, and today
I'm
I
so
listened to
sorry.
your episode about like dealing with an anxiety and depression during a breakup just came on when I was like I told you earlier. I just kept letting your podcast run. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need so much right now. And I wanted to mention that because I love the way you spoke to the way that like your mind can just mess with you and be like, no one likes you. Like all these stories about how,
Yes.
just awful you are will come up. And I was listening to that and I was laughing because I felt so seen and related to. And every morning through this, I've always been someone who prays. It's a Buddhist thing to do, but especially through this, it's every morning praying like, please help me keep my heart open. Please
Mhm.
guide me. Be with me. Like show me the way because my own brain cannot be trusted right now. Like I need a higher power with me all day. Please just stay with me. And
Yes.
last night I was finishing teaching my meditation class and I was driving home and I just heard this, I felt this instinct of like, don't take the freeway, take the long
Mm.
way. And I was like, who does that? Who wants to take the long way home when gas is so expensive? But my body was like, nope, we're listening. And it's not even that great of a story, but it's one of those connections for me where eventually I get onto the path where I'm facing my home and I'm facing the mountain that I grew up on. And
Mm.
literally all of a sudden this full rainbow just appears out of the sky into the mountain right where I grew up. Like that's where the rainbow ends and I'm watching it and there is not a cloud or rain or anything that should. I'm like, why is there a rainbow? This scientifically doesn't make sense. And I realized the prayer I had asked for that morning, just saying, like, just be with me, show me that you're here. Like, I
Mm.
just need the guidance. And the rainbow wasn't a sign or anything, it was just a gift. It was just a little
Yes.
present from the universe, just saying, like, hey, Jane, you're doing great. Like, hang in there. We're here with you.
Mm.
I think a breakup can be so isolating, like you said, being really deep in your mental health can be so
Yeah.
isolating. And spirituality is that opening to life loves me, life is
Mm.
supporting me, and the spirit, the universe, God, whatever it is for you, it's here, it's watching you, and it's gonna take care of you no matter what.
Yes. No, it's true. Because we're not, even if you think you're alone, you're not alone. Your heart's too closed off. You're not gonna see the beauty around you. You're just gonna keep having like horse blinders
Hmm.
on 24/7. So
Yeah, and you're
yeah.
gonna keep seeing the evidence that life is negative, and
Mm.
and you don't get that connection. And so yeah, people might not like when I'm like, life is always supporting you, and I'll always get like comments on my TikToks and stuff that'll be like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Let me tell you all the things that are wrong. And I'm like, okay, I don't mean to be so overly positive, but this morning I was thinking about those old Santa Claus movies that I loved so much
Oh,
as a kid. Do you remember
I
those?
had, yes, yes.
Why are they so good? Why
I
were they
don't
so
know. They're just,
good?
they warm your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just, it
Yeah.
just makes you feel nostalgic.
So I was thinking about that this morning, and in this specific the Santa Claus movie, at the end they always say, "Seeing isn't believing,
Mm.
believing is seeing." And this morning, I don't know why this came to mind, but finally, after all this time, it clicked for me. If you believe that you're being taken care of by the universe, by the earth, by whatever it is you want to call it, you'll see it.
Mm.
And so last night, when I got this weird vibe to just take a different route home and this crazy rainbow appears in front of me, I'm like, I chose to believe, and I saw that. If I weren't seeing it, I would have been like, no, I'm taking the freeway home. Who takes the long way home? I would have never seen the rainbow. I would have
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I wanted to share that.
We're both doing this. You can't see us if you're not watching it on YouTube,
Yeah,
but we're both putting on horse blinders.
exactly.
Oh no, I totally understand. And it's what you believe you perceive as well. I think based on how much you've healed and how far you've healed, it's tough if you won't feel seen by other people who are not also healing because they're just kind of
Mm.
seeing you from all their wounds. And that's what that made me think of. I'm like, there's so
Yeah.
many times in my life where I'd be interacting with someone else and they want to perceive you or a situation from their wounds, and they're not, if they're not healed from it, it's tough. And same goes for yourself. How was that experience to be at the monastery? What is that like? What if you could walk me through like a day of what it was like? Could you explain that?
Well, it's funny that you say monastery because so we have a temple here in Salt Lake
Mm.
City, and we practice here as Western Buddhists. Most of us are white people, to support our sister monastery in Nepal,
Okay,
where I
got it.
do go and spend time when I can, and I live there as if I'm a nun, which is a crazy lifestyle. So life at the temple as
Mm.
like a Western Buddhist downtown, it's pretty chill. We have classes during the week that are like varying levels depending on if you're like a senior member or a more beginner kind of lay practitioner. And then on Sundays we have pujas, which is like a
Mm.
devotional practice. It's a very complex practice that we spend about 2 hours moving through with mantras and chanting and bells and drums and even food offerings, candles. We like to make a really big show of it at the Tibetan Buddhist temple. And so,
I'm Sikh, so I kind of understand
oh,
yeah,
cool. Oh my
exact
gosh.
same. Yeah, exact
One
same
of
at our
my
temple.
one of my first meditation teachers, she was Sikh. In Southern Oregon, there's such a huge Sikh community.
Really? I was
And
thinking about moving there. That's a good to know.
oh, I think you might like it there. Yeah, there's a huge Sikh community there, and the first meditation class I ever took was a course on Kundalini meditation by a Sikh lady, and I was obsessed with her. I don't think anyone else in that class was anywhere near as. I was like, why isn't anyone else in here asking her every question that they can think of? I wanted to know everything about her life. So I
Yeah.
think we get that curiosity about tradition and really, I think people get a little thrown off that I'm carrying an indigenous tradition the way that I am. Like I dress up like I'm a nun, but I have long hair, and especially when I'm in Nepal, it really throws people off. But it's like that tradition's dying, right? That culture is under war. And so as a Westerner who has the privilege and the education, I've just been given the responsibility to carry it. So here, I would say we have kind of a modified version, right? Our pujas are only 2 hours long instead of like 6 hours all day, you know?
Yeah.
Then when we go to the monastery, it's, whew, I used to romanticize like one day I'm just gonna go be a nun in Nepal, and it's like no, those women work really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's early mornings, lots of prayer, lots of chores, lots of rules, you know. And I love being there and being in the retreat setting and being a student and just being so immersed in that. But um, I'm still an American, man. Like, it's so funny. At the end of my time there, I'm like, this has been amazing. Time to go home. Time to go back to my life.
Time to go back to this is a lot. This is a lot
Yeah,
of hard work. Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot.
that's wonderful that you got to do and experience that and share the culture and practices that you have learned and taken on, you know. So I think that's
It's
wonderful.
such a blessing. Yeah, yeah.
I was today I was flipping through your Instagram and I saw a couple posts about healing the divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Mm,
And those wounds, like if you're trying to attract in your divine masculine or divine feminine, you need to heal, you know, the opposite counterpart. I
mm-hmm.
myself am healing my mother wound currently, so I really resonated
Oh,
with those. Yeah, it was
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you, but also it's very hard. It's
Do you
very
like how I congratulate everyone on their healing? I'm like, yes.
because we should, you know. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of the healing people don't understand is spiritual and energetic, because then as your vibration raises, more wonderful things come into your life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um
How's
but
that been?
yeah.
I'm curious about, you know, healing the mother, because I can't say that I have a huge mother wound. My mom is my
Mm,
best freaking friend.
that's
And so
amazing.
I'm always kind of curious to hear what that process
Mm.
is like.
So for me personally, my mother's the most wonderful person on the planet. She's very kind, very giving,
Hmm.
very compassionate. However, she's been through a lot of stuff in her life, a lot of trauma. And with any parent that's experienced any sorts of trauma, sometimes they can take it out on you in ways that they're not very aware of. Both my parents are divorced. They got divorced when I was about 19 years old.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, it was. I was in college. I have the whole trauma stories on my
Like our
podcast.
19-year-old selves would be friends
They totally would actually. When you were
if
saying
they would
that,
talk to each other in their isolation.
oh God, I was a mess. I was a drug addict. It was bad.
Mm,
But when they're like, if anyone's marriage is suffering, both people, the way that they deal with that stress is not the best, right? So they can
mhm,
pick up certain habits that make them emotionally unavailable. I've had to
mhm,
remother myself, and I don't fault her at all. You know, she's just an amazing human, but we don't
mhm.
know what we don't know, you know. So
Yeah.
I have been, anytime like I'm feeling this lack of love within myself, I pause and I try to find a way to give it to myself in some way, um, like emotionally validate myself. If I make a mistake, not be too hard on myself, but just kind of give like my little inner children a little bit of a lecture, like, hey guys, stop doing this. And then
Yes.
like try to recorrect it in a way and show some compassion and love. Because I needed a mother in some of those core years that I didn't
Mm,
get, like embracing
mhm,
my femininity,
mm,
embracing my feminine energy. I always had a very masculine shield up in my energy, just because, you know, me and my dad are like best buddies, and he threw me into martial arts and sports, and he was like, you're a girl, but you're going to learn how to protect yourself and be a badass. I'm like, okay. But then I was so disconnected with my feminine energy for so long,
yeah.
to the point where I noticed, actually, like, sorry for the guys that are listening, I noticed that my like period just completely disappeared because my feminine energy was gone, completely disconnected.
What?
Yeah. And as soon as I
No
started
way.
healing it and coming back to it, it came back like
Wow.
normal. So ways of healing that mother wound is that writing a letter to my mom, things I wish that I could say that I can't necessarily say to her. That'd be unfair in so many ways. And then just like cathartically maybe burning it in a safe space. People, don't do this outside. And then if I yesterday I had a bit of a breakthrough. My little brother, who's like 8 years younger than me, I'm 31, he's 23. He's gonna go off to like college soon, or like continue college somewhere else. And he noticed that I just have this wall up of not being vulnerable and letting anyone in, just because of what's happened between me and my mom. And he like kind of like kept poking at that wall, and I was like resisting. And all of a sudden I just like broke down. And I let out all the thoughts that I was thinking and feeling that I wasn't really able to share with anyone else. So it's a lot of, when you feel stuck and you feel that resistance of the emotions, that's when you really have to lean into it more. I was forced to lean into it more because my brother is abnormally wise beyond his years.
I'm like, what a sweetie. He's like, we're going to make you face this.
Yeah, he's like,
for you.
And as soon as that happened, it was the craziest thing. I saw this huge hawk land like right in front of me. I'm like, I was like, what the heck is happening? It was so, I haven't looked up what a hawk means, so I do not know what the message was. But
there was a message.
There was a message. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, the mother wound, because the mother's your first love, right? Mm-hmm. So I noticed the relationships that I was attracting into my life mirrored my relationship with my mother. Emotional unavailability, very hot and cold behavior. Just very up and down. So it's been tough.
Oh, thanks for sharing all of that with me. I wanted to hear more about you. And you know, in Buddhism we say that the mother is the first teacher of compassion. And in Buddhism, so many teachers will say, like, think of how much you love your mother. And I'm always like, come up with something else. That doesn't work for everyone. Like, think about how much you love your dog. Think about how much you love your, because so many people didn't get that first teaching of compassion. And that's why I think I'm so lucky, is that I feel like I really got that with my mom. But what I want to say for anyone listening, and I feel like you kind of skirted past this, is that our parents, even if they're like the most amazing, greatest people ever, they're flawed, just like you and I are, And it feels like, just listening to your story, like you didn't want to admit that she had flaws. Like you were almost betraying her or ungrateful, and your cute little brother was like, you gotta let this out, girl, it's okay. And with my little siblings, like if they're upset at our parents for something, I'll be like, yeah, they suck. Like, I won't be like, oh, come on, like Dad's doing his best, don't be so hard on him. I'll be like, yeah, Dad's being such an ass today, I get it. Like, let's accept it, that our parents can be shitty. And maybe you saw the post I recently made that was like, I posted it on Father's Day, and I said, forgive your parents for not giving you the love that you needed. And it's funny how neither of my parents took that personally, but so many people messaged me and were like, is everything okay with like you and your mom? And I'm like, yeah, like that's the whole point of the message, is that like we're today we're gonna love our parents no matter what, because I help so many of my students through these mother and father wounds. And what I notice is that they really want their parents to get on board with their healing. Like, you might have been like, Mom, I really need you to be emotionally available for me from now on in this way. And she's looking at you like, how am I supposed to do that if I haven't been able to do that all this time? Like, how do you expect me to learn this now? So we have to accept, there's ways that your mom shows you her availability and her love for you. And we want to like highlight those moments.
Yeah.
And love them for who they are. Like, you don't need to get them in on the journey with you. I think that's when people get really frustrated.
I healed my father wound as well, because both my parents were emotionally unavailable for quite some time. So, but in healing my father wound with my dad, we became so much closer. Really, really close. But still, like you said, he has his days where I'm just like, really? Like I'm just like, I'm not speaking to you until you're done, like you're with your man PMS, because this is a thing. I was like, I can't do it today, Dad.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the beauty, is that, you just described such an adult, mature relationship with your father. And it's funny because it mirrors exactly me a couple days ago, just being like, oh, you're being so annoying right now. I'm not going to talk to you for like 3 days. And we're proud of ourselves when we have those moments, because it's like, oh, I'm an adult now. I don't owe you anything. Whereas when we were children, we kind of felt like, I have to answer your phone calls. I have to be home. I have to be around you. I have to be emotionally available to whatever you're going through. And when we become adults, I think a lot of us have to get to that point where we learn, like, I cannot answer my parents' phone call. I can tell them I need some space. I can tell them, when you're acting like this, I don't want you to talk to me. And that's the best way to learn to love our parents as we become adults, is to be our own parents first in the ways that they weren't. How do you wish your mom or dad would have stood up for you to themselves,
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's very true. Wow, you're like blowing my mind.
I have a question for you. I wonder if you've explored this on your show.
Go for it.
The argument, this has been on my mind a lot lately, because I told you all these labels I had, right? Like, if you open my medical chart, I've got all this stuff wrong with me. And whenever like I got a bill the other day and I had to open my chart, and it's like, it even says like lesbian in like all capital letters, it's like, it feels so intrusive when I open my chart. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anorexic, depressed, clinically anxious, it's like, and then it's like all these medications that they've put me on in the past. And I'm reminded, like, whoa, I have all those things. And then I remember, my doctors and my therapist saying, Jane, you will be anorexic for the rest of your life. You will struggle with anxiety for the rest of your life. This is why you need medication. This is why you need all of this. Like, you'll never be fully recovered from any of this. And I read an amazing book that said, you actually can fully recover.
Yeah.
And that actually changed the whole trajectory of my recovery, was the idea that maybe someday I could put it behind me. And then I'm seeing, like, but that doesn't mean we want to tell people their mental illnesses aren't real. We want to, and I guess this is something that's been on my mind today, because this morning I was listening to this great podcast with Glennon Doyle, Abby Wambach, and oh my gosh, what is her name? The tennis player, Billie Jean King. Like, it just came out today. You have to listen to it. It's so good. And I got kind of triggered because it was fascinating, because they were both talking about how they had eating disorders until they came out. And once they came out, they were able to start healing their eating disorders. And I was like, wow, this is like so my story. But then, like, these women are in their like 40s and 50s, and they're like, but I still have an eating disorder and I will struggle with it for the rest of my life. And I was like, oh, I don't like how that feels at all, And I started thinking, like, do I need to think that way? Because through this breakup, I've definitely been triggered. Like, oh my God, all the triggers, all of the scary thoughts have come up. But I'm like, do I still have to identify with those things? And I guess just like that's been on my mind today. And I'm like sitting here thinking about your audience, wondering if anyone else thinks that, or if you've thought about that or talked about it.
So that's something I personally try to fight on my platform, is these labels that we're given, because what it does is it puts you in a box. And as soon as you're in the box, you start to think and act like you're in the box. Like if someone gives you a label and be like, this is what you are, this is who you are, subconsciously, we kind of start to just lean into it a little bit more. Personally, what I think it does, and what it did for me, is when I was labeled with PTSD and depression, I thought the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to have PTSD for the rest of my life. I fully overcame it. Do I still get triggered? Yes. But does that mean I still have PTSD? No. I think triggers and the label should be separate, in my opinion. I don't think they should be the same, because what triggers you doesn't mean that it necessarily has to label you. It's just triggering you to show you and pinpoint what you need to heal. And
Mm.
putting a label on someone that, hey, you're gonna have bipolar for the rest of your life is scary. I've seen people come out of bipolar and completely heal it and never have it again.
Wow.
And through, plant medicine, through therapy, through hypnotherapy, EMDR, all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So it's
Mm-hmm.
possible, but if you put a label and like a life sentence on someone, then they automatically have no more hope thinking that they can get through it. And they just sort of
Mm.
get complacent and think, okay, this is the ceiling.
Yeah.
But it's not the ceiling. The ceiling is wherever you choose for it to be, I think. And people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand that with their mental health. They think that if they struggle with depression or an eating disorder or any other sort of mental illness, that's it. That's what you have. I think there are some obviously that are wildly chemical imbalances in your brain, and that's a thing, right? Yes, maybe you will have that for the rest of your life, but it's not, it shouldn't be a label. It should just be like
Mm-hmm.
someone who struggles with like a thyroid issue. And then, oh,
Yeah.
you gotta take medicine in the morning every day for that. Cool, but that's it. It's not who you
Mm-hmm.
are, you know?
Mm.
So yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. I needed that today. Thank you, Sabi.
Of
Yeah, because
course.
I've been getting so triggered, and if there's a day when like I don't want to make breakfast or like I don't want, then I'm like,
Mm.
oh no, I'm not okay. And then
Yeah.
again, my brain wants to find everything that's wrong with me right now because I just got dumped like 2 months ago. And my brain is really like, let's find another thing wrong with you, Jane. You're
Oh
spiraling.
no.
Remember, you're depressed and anorexic, and then yeah, and I was like, no, 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 that was years ago. So it's such a relief to hear you say like, oh, I healed from my PTSD,
Hmm.
because that's what I've been saying for so long. And just the struggles I've had lately, it's like so scary. And it's like we don't want to put the labels, we don't want them to completely disappear.
Hmm.
We want to remember that like we have these kind of predispositions to these kinds of triggers. But I love what you said, that the trigger does not lead to the label. Like,
Yeah.
I'm stick with me. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Yeah, it's something I fought with for such a long time because I was so comfortable in the box of PTSD and depression.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, no, that's just, but then it became an excuse for me personally to not
Mm-hmm.
further my healing. And I was like, oh no. And then the second I stepped out of it, I thought, well, who am I now that I'm not the depressed PTSD girl? And then
Yes.
yeah. So it just
And then
fully,
you got to be you.
mm, which
Yeah.
is liberating. I think like through healing, you do find your authentic self and you can just fully step into it and not have to worry so much like, oh no, am I going backwards? Like
Mm-hmm.
I totally still struggle with that where I'm like, I can't be old Sabby. But if you like, I will never be old Sabby. It's been I don't know how long. There's no way, So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Once you've awakened, that's what I always tell everyone. And maybe the
Mm.
mental health people will resonate. Like, once you've awakened, you're not going to go back to sleep.
No.
Like, you're going to have hard days. You're going to have days where you feel like you're backsliding, but you're not. They're just hard days, and you're always going to keep getting better.
Exactly. I needed to hear that actually. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah. And anyone listening, hard days, Savi and I are here for you.
We're here.
We have
DM
lots of
us.
content for you. Yeah.
So much content.
We're literally doing it all day for you. Oh,
Well, I have my last question for you,
let's do it.
and it is if anyone listening has resonated with anything that you've said or your journey, what would be the advice that you would give them to get through it?
Mm. It's funny, what comes up for me is just like this message of like, just come out, like, be spiritual, be queer, transcend your mental illness labels, like, as you're asking me this question, I see like, all of these closets we could be living in, right?
Mm,
And the closet of I'm going to stay anorexic, the closet of I'm not going to go into the spiritual stuff because it's weird, like whatever it is that you're wanting to just like step out into and just like let the authenticity of who you are shine, like just follow that. It feels like, I'm very intuitive this way, like I'm like feeling into who might be listening. It feels like people who might be listening might be a little bit more concerned about what others' perspectives are going to be on them if they decide to get really freaking serious about their healing journey, or get really into yoga and meditation, or go on a retreat that's going to change their lives, right? Or even just tell their friends like, hey guys, I think there's more to life. You know, like don't be afraid to be that person that's like, y'all, there's more to life. Like I'm going to go after it. Because I think a lot of us, I see it in my students a lot that come to work with me. They're like hiding in the spiritual closet because they don't want their friends to think they're woo-woo, when the rest of their friends are wishing one person would just be like, hey, you guys ever think there's more to life than our 9-to-5s? So like be that person. It feels like that's the advice that wants to come through, you know? And what my students, I have a program called Sanctuary, and I call it the Lighthouse Factory, because if you go through that program, after it, you're going to come out shining light. Lighthouses don't go looking for people to save. They don't go looking for people who need the light. They just stand there. And they're just bright. And the boats that need their light come to them. And so just go be the bright person. I feel like the people who are listening know that they're bright and know that they're so radiant. And too many of us are just hiding it. It makes me sad. Go shine. If you want to come hang out, I've got a podcast. It's called Lioness. Jane of 801 is my Instagram handle. You can find me there. I've got a virtual yoga studio that's always open. I'm actually holding a 30-day yoga challenge next month. That's like daily yoga, meditation, pranayama. It's going to be really fun if anyone wants to get into that with me. And yeah, just come to my Instagram, listen to my podcast, come play with us. I've got a really fun space. And yeah, if anything I said resonated with you today, I would love to hear from you. Like, I love hearing from listeners. I love connecting, and I'm here to support you if you feel like you want to reach out and message me.
Thank you so much for listening, and remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.